This week we have a great opportunity in one of the best rivalry games in all of sports, not just college football, but in all of sports. You'll hear it at the sold-out Doak Campbell Stadium. Night game, prime time. Wonderful stage to be able to show this team, who we are, what we're about, and the response that we're going to have.
Hello and welcome. It's always college football. It's our preview show for week 6. And what a show we have in store for you today. We are going to do a ton of games. Big, long, lengthy breakdowns. And then we have a few that we'll fly through, but we'll still do them in the same format that we've done all the time. We just might not spend quite as much time because they're not super marquee matchups. If you look at point spreads here throughout this weekend, there's a lot of big numbers out there. So there are going to be a few games where we kind of tell you, here's the pathway to victory for the underdog. We're going to do it that way in a few cases, so we will get to those. We'll look forward to games at noon, 3:30, and in the primetime window, national championship contenders that will take the field against one another. Before we get to the previews, if you could, go and subscribe to the podcast. Cannot emphasize this enough. We are having more and more people that are seeing our stuff on the ESPN College Football YouTube page, and then they're all of a sudden coming over, they're subscribing, and the numbers are going up drastically as a result. So we appreciate the collaboration that we're getting on both sides. And if you're with us on the podcast side, check us out on the YouTube page because there might be a few fun clip outs that are YouTube exclusive that you'll find on that page as well. So let's dive in. This is always a lengthy show, so let's get right to it, and we'll kick things off in the noon window with Wisconsin and Michigan. 12 o'clock Eastern time on Fox. The Michigan Wolverines will host the Badgers in the Big House in Ann Arbor. Should be a low-scoring game. Vegas at least thinks so. Total just north of 40. This could be a grinder of a football game that might be played in about 2 hours and 15 minutes. Of course, think it'll be a little longer than that, but both teams want to control the clock. Michigan trying to build on momentum after the tough lost to Oklahoma, but they bounced back and won in decisive fashion against Nebraska. And then conversely, on their side, Wisconsin kind of arrives at a bit of a crossroads, desperately needing to show progress after consecutive losses to Bama and Maryland. Michigan's been victorious in 19 of the last 21 games played between the two on their home turf. So they've been really good at home. And for Luke Fickell, Luke Fickell did a great job at Cincinnati. No one's denying that. But after a 5-7 campaign last season and a 2-2 start here to start 25, the pressure's ramped up and there's a lot of instability right now at the quarterback spot. But man, it feels like forever. Wisconsin's been dealing with quarterback injuries. This year's no different. They've lost Tyler Van Dyke last year. They lost Billy Edwards earlier this year. Danny O'Neal's even a little banged up. So we'll see what happens with the quarterback spot. You need to watch the injury report closely in this game. Bryce Underwood's a quarterback for Michigan. We know how kind of talent he is. Big, strong arm, physical, super athletic in the run game. Has some elite physical traits that are just flat out uncoachable. And through the first 4 games, he's done a great job at times and an average job at others. Look, doesn't have the greatest supporting cast in the world as far as weaponry is concerned, but he can probably be a little more efficient, maybe not throw it with such incredible velocity on underneath throws. He has just 1 interception, though, so he's made pretty good decisions. But on the ground, that's where he's been very, very dangerous. And while the completion percentage is a little low, the offense has been hampered some by drop passes as well. There's been flashes, though, and that's what you expect when looking at a freshman quarterback. For Wisconsin at quarterback, no telling. Is it going to be Billy Edwards, Danny O'Neal, Hunter Simmons? The instability where their opening day starter and Billy Edwards gets the knee sprain week 1, super in question at this point. Danny O'Neal also banged up against Maryland, kind of creates a bit of a precarious situation. So watch the injury report closely for the Badgers to find out who the quarterback is going to be. But that's not the only position that's been challenging. The offensive line's been in a bit of a state of flux. Starting center Jake Renfro has been battling an injury from fall camp. A few other linemen, including Nelson and Haywood, both on the injury report. Compounding some of these issues is that they have Tucker Ashcraft as well. He's been sidelined as well with a lower body injury. So look at the injury report for Wisconsin in this game. Could be very, very important, more so than most other games. And for Michigan, they're kind of trending towards full strength. And it appears like Rod Moore's going to be back. He's an all-10 safety, all Big Ten safety from a year ago. So he'd be huge, really, really big if he can get back because of how good he is from a football IQ standpoint. It could create a lot of problems for whoever the opposing quarterback is going to be. Question number 1, can Wisconsin stop the run? This is an elite rushing defense statistically, one of the best in college football. They're allowing just 50 yards a game. Not a single team has gone over 75 yards rushing this season. This is one area where I do think Wisconsin might be able to match up against Michigan's strength. Now, we know what Michigan's offense's identity is. They want to control the line of scrimmage. They want to run the football. They're top 10 in rush yards per game at over 250. And this attack is not just limited to one weapon. Justice Haynes enters the contest as a top 6 rusher in college football so far. You also look at Marshall. He's got some open field speed. And also from Underwood as a runner. He's got some real juice. And when they get into those empty formations, you got to account for him as a runner. And that's tricky on the opposing defense. And Wisconsin's safeties in particular, they got to be really good tackling in this one. Because if you watch the game against Nebraska, for example, there were a bunch of opportunities for the Nebraska safety to make a play for a 6-7 yard gain. They miss. Next thing you know, Justice Haynes is out the gate for 75 yards. So if the Badgers can somehow win this matchup, that could force Michigan into becoming a little more pass happy, which is not what they want to be at this point. So question 2, can Bryce Underwood exploit a questionable secondary? Michigan's passing game is 106th. Wisconsin's secondary is giving up 235 yards a game. Bryce Underwood's a freshman. He's going to have some really high highs. He's going to have some really low lows. There are also, if you look at the overall passing numbers, he does have the arm talent to connect on the deep ball. And we know if rushing the football for Michigan, that's their bread and butter. If they're effective enough running the football to compel Wisconsin to bring some extra safeties into the box to help, then Underwood, he might be presented with some one-on-one matchups on the perimeter to work against a struggling secondary. Look, I look at Donovan McCulley. I think he can be a number 1 guy. I really believe that. I think he has shown growth over the last few weeks. I've liked what I've seen from him. I also think Semaj Morgan can cause a lot of problems in the slot. Has had a couple drops, but I still believe in his ability, especially after the catch. And across the board, there have been a decent number of drops, by the way, for Michigan receivers. And they kind of need to clean that up going forward to help out their young quarterback. On the other side, top corner, Ricardo Hallman. He has really kind of not been the same guy this year. So far, he was supposed to be a lockdown guy. He was one of the better secondary defenders on the perimeter last year in the entire Big Ten. He was outstanding. So he's got to get back to playing where he played last year. And then on the other side, Latimer hasn't exactly been locked down either. So if you're Wisconsin, your secondary needs to be at their best in this matchup because you're probably going to have to pay some extra attention to stopping the run with your safeties. Question 3, can Wisconsin's pass rush show up? Now, Mason Reiger is a really good piece, and I do think they have the ability to pressure the quarterback. They've been a top 15 pass rush in the Power 4 this year, but this will be a big test because while watching the Michigan offensive line, very, very solid group running the football, but the pass pro, there is room for improvement there. So maybe that's the one area where maybe Wisconsin can get them behind the sticks. But like I said, stopping the run is the first test. Question number 4, can Wisconsin hold up along their offensive line? Look, we know what Michigan has. They are widely considered one of the deepest, most talented defensive lines in the country. On the other side, Wisconsin's offensive line, that's historically been the bedrock of Wisconsin's offensive identity. They've been banged up with injuries, and they've been very porous in pass protection. They've given up a ton of sacks. Their performance, even against Miami, Ohio, in the season opener was pretty alarming. They allowed a bunch of pressures in that one against a G5 team. So if you watch Michigan against Nebraska, they just completely collapsed the pocket around Dylan Raiola, and they crushed the quarterback if the offensive line can't hold up. Nebraska's tackles got killed in that game. So this is a mismatch very much in favor of the Wolverines and will likely lead to a lot of pressure on whoever the quarterback is for the Badgers. And question 5, can Wisconsin quit shooting themselves in the foot? Because offensively, if you look at their numbers, they're averaging 323 yards a game. That's 117th. They're averaging 118 rushing yards a game. That's 110th. We're not really sure what to make of their quarterback, but here's the mind-blowing thing about their offense. It looks like they have something going a little bit, and all of a sudden they make a huge mistake. Like they're putting a couple plays together, and then boom, pass rush wins O'Neal throws a fadeaway jumper to the slot to the left-hand side, and it's picked off by Maryland and returned inside the 5. They got some stuff going again a little later in the game, and the center snaps at 100 miles an hour over the quarterback's head, and they lose 20. And they're on the move again. They try a trick play at midfield. They get sacked for a loss of 9. Drive stalls. They have kicks get blocked. That's not a good recipe against a good Michigan defense. They cannot make these self-inflicted mistakes, because if they do, they're going to be in a huge uphill battle. Look, Wisconsin's path to an upset's pretty clear. Their defensive front has to play out of their mind. They got to hold Michigan under 100 on the ground, maybe 150. I mean, they gotta get them behind the sticks. They got to be good on first down. They got to force Bryce Underwood into obvious passing situations where Wisconsin secondary can potentially capitalize. That group's got to play better. Wisconsin's offense, they have some short fields because maybe they intercept them a couple times. They pound it in the red zone and score, and all of a sudden they have the lead going to the fourth quarter, and this game kind of devolves into a super low-scoring defensive slugfest, and Wisconsin makes that one final critical defensive stop late to kind of shock and surprise everyone in college football. Like, I think Michigan wins the game. I just think they need to take care of the football. If they turn it over, that's what makes this thing interesting. If they play field position, they should be in good shape. I haven't seen anything that makes me think Wisconsin could just churn out long drives and avoid the critical mistake. The only way I can see them really scoring is by getting short fields and staying on schedule, which they haven't done to this point. However, I will take the points. I think Wisconsin's defense will play well. I really believe that. So I'm thinking low scoring. I'd take those 16.5 that the Wolverines are currently laying. Take the Badgers plus the points. Let's go next to Iowa State at Cincinnati. Cincinnati a slight favorite here. This game's 12 o'clock Eastern time on ESPN2. Iowa State is undefeated. Got to go play against a really good Cincinnati Bearcat team at Nippert Stadium. This quarterback matchup is one of the best matchups of the weekend, by the way. Not a lot of people are going to talk about it in that light because not a lot of people have watched what Sorsby can be for Cincinnati, but I think most people are very aware of what Rocco Becht has done. Super efficient, really good. He's demonstrated the ability to kind of make plays, not just with his arm, but with his legs as well. He's got a dual threat ability, but his decision-making and the ability to avoid turnovers will be critical on the road in this one. And then Brennan Sorsby for Cincinnati. He's established himself as a really potent weapon. He's been so much better throwing it this year, but his legs, that's what makes him very difficult to contain. Now, he kind of found his rhythm in the Cincinnati offense. He's a capable passer, but his performance against a stout Iowa State defense will be a massive factor in the game. He's one of the best quarterbacks in the country that no one's really talking about. A couple impactful injuries. Cyclones did lose Jeremiah Cooper, a strong defensive back there for them, one of their corners. His absence in the secondary is potentially significant. Will put a little pressure on the rest of the group. And then for Cincinnati, more significant injuries on their side. Defensive tackle Dante Corleone, he's got an ankle injury. Keep an eye on him. He was a game-time decision last time. His presence there in the middle of the defensive line is huge for their ability to stop the run. And then the health of their tight end, Joe Royer, is also something to monitor as well. He's one of the key targets in the passing game. He got knocked out of last week's game. Question 1, can Cincinnati continue to create balance offensively? Right now, Cincy's offense is number 6 in college football this year in terms of offensive efficiency. They're 3rd in yards per play, and that's both through the air and on the ground. They're over 6 yards a carry and over 10 yards an attempt. They're averaging 40 points per game. This is a really good offense that needs to maintain their efficiency. Question 2, can Iowa State establish the run? It's a run-first football team. They're about 55-45 split run to pass. And if Dante Corleone is not at 100%, or if he is for whatever reason unavailable, they have to be able to run the football. Right now, they're averaging less than 4 yards per carry. If they can't establish the run, that puts a lot of pressure on Rocco Becht to beat Cincinnati through the air. Question 3, can Iowa State force a few mistakes? Look, Iowa State's really well coached, and they force a lot of mistakes. They have 8 takeaways this year, 6 picks. They are very disciplined defensively, and you have to be patient if you're playing against them. Question 4, will Sorsby continue his success when scrambling? Right now, he's a top 10 quarterback in the country when it comes to creating scramble yardage. He's got 179 rushing yards by way of the scramble this year. And Iowa State's not a heavy blitz team, and they aren't great generating pressure, so they need to be very aware of where Sorsby is in the pocket at all times. They really need to kind of keep him in the pocket to make him a little less comfortable. And then question 5, can Iowa State control the clock? Since he has not been good this year when it comes to time of possession. Opponents are possessing the ball for over 35 minutes a game against the Bearcats. If Iowa State can establish that level of ball control, it'll be tough sledding for the Bearcats. But I'm taking Cincinnati. While their injuries are very concerning, I do think they have a little more firepower. I think they get it done at home against a really good Iowa State football team. Clemson travels to Chapel Hill, North Carolina. This game's 12 o'clock Eastern time on ESPN. Both teams coming off a bye week have had some rocky starts to the season so far. Both teams are desperate for a conference win. We'll start in the quarterback matchup with Cade Klubnik. Look, he's played a ton of football. He's been to and won an ACC championship game, not once but twice. He has been to the college football playoff. He's known for leadership. He's known for playmaking ability, but he has yet to look very consistent this year. He's made a couple big mistakes, turned the ball over, has had fumbles, has had interceptions. He's got to be better in this matchup against North Carolina. And for North Carolina, Gio Lopez was the guy. But he has been injured. I got hurt last week, and Bill Belichick, notorious for keeping things close to the vest. It's looking like it's going to be Max Johnson going forward. Statistically, I think they'll be just fine with Max Johnson. He's played a lot of football, but keep an eye on the quarterback spot for North Carolina. It could be significant. For Clemson, it seems like they're getting healthy at the right time. You got some big-time offensive players like Antonio Williams, Tristan Lee, their wide receiver and left tackle, respectively. They're returning to action. On the defensive side, it sounds like Khalil Barnes is going to be back as well. So that's big, especially when looking at some of their top players at those positions. At wideout, Antonio Williams, their best. Their left tackle, they got to have him. And then at safety, Khalil Barnes just makes plays. So those guys being back should improve a Clemson team that's in desperate need of a win. For North Carolina, they've been dealing with some of their own injuries. Wide receiver Chris Culliver has been a little bit banged up. The offensive line has also been affected. They've had a couple guys out there. They also have lost a guy or two on the defensive side of the line of scrimmage as well, and Price Yates being out. So keep an eye on that. If those guys can go, should absolutely enhance North Carolina's chances of pulling off the upset. Question 1, can Clemson's defensive line step up and stop the run? They've historically been pretty formidable along the front. And even though it's been a little bit of a slow start so far this year, they still have the talent to dominate a UNC offensive line that has struggled to protect their quarterback and establish a consistent run game. But right now, if you look at Clemson's D-line, they're allowing over 120 on the ground a game. That's barely top 50 nationally. And that's just not acceptable for a group that had 2 All-American contenders on their defensive line coming into the season. Question 2, can North Carolina find some rhythm offensively? Right now, they're averaging 263 yards a game on offense. That's 134th in the FBS. They've struggled to run it. They've struggled to throw it, but not great. They've also turned it over a bunch too. So there's been a big issue in many ways this season. Can they get things going in the right direction on that side of the ball? Question 3, can North Carolina improve their play on critical downs? They're in the hundreds on third down defense. They're converting less than 35% of their third downs. They're in the hundreds in red zone offense. They're allowing 44% conversion on third down defensively. They're in the hundreds there too. The only place where they've been decent situationally is in the red zone. And that's shocking too, when you take into account how good Bill Belichick has been over his whole career on critical downs. They got to get those issues addressed. Question 4, what does this Clemson offense want to be? Statistically, they're not very good running the football. They're 116th in rushing yards a game. But I think they can be better there. Like, I watch them, and I don't think they're well suited to sit there and drop back and throw it 40 times a ball game. I just don't think that's who they need to be. I know they haven't been quite as committed to running the football up to this point, but I have a feeling moving forward, we're going to see a lot more Adam Randall. I think he needs to be a bit of a workhorse. He's a big guy. Feed him. Find balance. Feature the run game. Feature Adam Randall. And that should hopefully open things up on the outside. Question 5, can Cade Klubnik get back on track? This should be the game. North Carolina has only 4 sacks this year. They haven't been able to rush the quarterback. The one thing that Cade Klubnik has struggled with this year is when he's been under pressure and when he's been under duress. He shouldn't have much of that in this game. In this one, this is the game. This is the one where Clemson finally puts it all together. They're finally getting healthier. They've had a chance to reassess everything through the bye week. They're not going to feel the pressure from North Carolina defensively, and I think they'll establish a clear identity on offense. I'm laying the points, the road chalk, take Clemson. They're going to win this game comfortably. We'll go next, 3:30 Eastern time on ESPN. This game will travel to the Swamp. It's the Texas Longhorns on the road against a desperate Florida Gator football team. Look, Billy Napier's under fire. There's no denying that. He's coaching for his job. This was supposed to be, coming into the season, one of the best quarterback matchups of the year, with Arch Manning on one side, who has had some moments, but they've been a little few and far between. He's not been super efficient. He's completing just 61%. He's got 9 touchdowns against 3 interceptions. The passer rating's okay, but you need to watch his mechanics. His off-target rate is 18%. That's 132nd. So he's had some misses. And part of that is because he's been a little bit sidearm. His footwork has been a little bit out of sorts. He's now had a bye week to kind of take a step back, relax, and focus on his fundamentals. He's extremely talented when his feet are set and his arm is where it needs to be. That needs to be the focus moving forward for Arch Manning and this Longhorn offense. For DJ Lagway on the other side, it's been very turbulent. Through 4 games, there have been some good moments, but the ball security has been a huge issue. 6 picks, the 5 interception performance against LSU was a real problem. There's an issue, especially when he gets pressure and he tries to make plays when the team is trailing. He also is a little bit banged up too. So he's got a leg injury. He's been in the boot following the loss to Miami. He's listed as questionable, all these other things. A compromised DJ Lagway would lead to him becoming maybe more of a stationary target against a Texas defense that can really rush the passer. Now, if he, for whatever reason, can't go, it's Jermel Jones, who's a backup with limited experience playing against a top 10 team. So this is a no-win scenario. It's a tough spot. You got a guy that might be way less than 100% against an untested backup. We'll see what happens for Billy Napier and this offense that has really, really struggled. For Texas, they're getting healthy at the right time. Florida has a lot of issues on that side of the ball from an injury standpoint. We'll talk about those in a minute. But it's looking like right now CJ Baxter is held out, precautionary, expecting him to be available. Quintravian Wisner has also missed a little time, but could return here at some point very soon. You also have Emmett Mosley, highly touted Stanford transfer, has missed the first 4 games, but has returned to practice. So he might be able to make a debut. That'd be big to increase some of the weaponry they have offensively for the Longhorns. On defense for Florida, it's a huge issue, especially along the defensive line. This could be very, very impactful. So Caleb Banks, he's got a foot injury. He's one of the best defensive tackles in the entire country. Missed the Miami game. At this point, we're unsure about when he's going to be able to come back. Also at defensive tackle, you have Mekhi Burrow. He's the starter in Banks' absence. Well, now he's been a little questionable, has been a little banged up the last couple of weeks as well. You got LJ McCray, who's been banged up. He's an edge player there along the D-line. He's out. George Gums was also out against Miami. Got to watch him. Is he going to be back? You also have Dijon Johnson, who's out, had surgery there at the end of September. And then Dallas Wilson, who is yet to play this season, but he's a promising freshman. We'll see what's going to happen with him down the road. Hopefully he can get back at some point, but not optimistic, at least at this point. So there's a mash unit a little bit right now on Florida's defense. Question number 1, can Florida get their offense going? Look, this Texas defense is the real deal. They're giving up under 8 points per game. That's top 2 in the country. And this Florida offense, they've really struggled. Just 22 points a game, just outside the top 100, not what you want. And the Longhorns defense, they just get after you, man. They're very, very good on the front. I think they are actually improved with what they have on the outside as well. And this Gator team, man, has not been very promising with how they've played up front, how they've been able to run the football. It's a tough matchup. It's not a good get-right recipe for the Florida Gators. Question 2, in order to score, Florida must run the ball. Can they? Now, perhaps one of the most disappointing units for Florida this year has been the lack of growth along a very experienced offensive line. Well, in this game, that offensive line has to be at their very best. They do have a star at running back. Like running back Jaden Baugh is fantastic. He is very difficult to bring down. He's 230 pounds. At one point earlier this season, he was averaging 5 yards after contact per carry. But he needs some more space. He needs to be able to get to the second level without getting touched along the line of scrimmage. That has not happened very consistently this year. And like we said, man, Texas's run defense, they give up just over 60 yards a game. That's top 3 in the country. So you know that the goal for Texas is to make Florida's offense one-dimensional. If they can stop the run, then Texas can kind of force their issues in the pass rush in obvious passing situations. And if you have a quarterback that's not seeing the field real well, and with the juice that Texas has coming off the edge, this could be really problematic. So I think Florida has to run the football. They especially have to run it really well on first and second down to avoid those third and long situations. Question 3. Can Texas's offense create some big plays? Now, we haven't really seen Texas play a quality defense in over a month. The last one we saw was against Ohio State, and it wasn't pretty. Now, traditionally, Steve Sarkisian's the master of dialing up big plays, finding favorable matchups, and just hasn't been very consistent this year in manufacturing big ones. They're 62nd in explosive rushing rate. They've created only 15 explosive passes this year. That's 56th. Now, we haven't seen the massive plays that we usually see. And whatever you want to say about Florida is fair, but this is a pretty stout defense. They're a top 15 defense in terms of efficiency, and they have a really stout defensive core. And the one thing that Florida does really well is they force you to be very patient in the game plan. They're not going to let you throw it over the top of your head. That's just not who they are. They're going to kind of play bend, don't break. They're going to hope that you can move it between the 20s. Fine, go for it. But in the red zone, when the yards get tough, that's when you're going to have a hard time manufacturing plays over their heads. So the one thing that Florida has struggled with at times this year, they have not really gotten to the quarterback with a lot of regularity, just 3 sacks. So if they can put pressure on Arch, that would be huge, because Arch under pressure has not been quite as efficient as to when the pocket has been clean. Question 4, can Florida continue to be great in the red zone? Despite their inability to move the ball consistently between the 20s, the Gators have been really good once they get in the red zone. They've scored on 12 of their 13 trips, with an impressive 9 of those 12 being touchdowns. So if they get down there, they can do their thing. And if you look at the other side, the Texas's offense, they have a ton of firepower, but they've been kind of mediocre in the red zone. This is not just this year. This has kind of been going back the last couple of years. They've scored on just 75% of their trips with a touchdown percentage of just 55%. They were a costly 0 for 2 in the red zone in their loss to Ohio State. So they can't settle for field goals. That's been a bit of a flaw, and it has been for a while now. So they got to get that addressed, not just against Florida, but against the better competition they're going to see down the stretch. Question 5, will either team find success on third down offensively? Both offenses so far have been very, very poor and pedestrian on third down. Texas converting just under 36%. That ranks outside the top 100. Florida's struggles are even more pronounced. They are converting just over 30%, which is 123rd in the country. Now, the true mismatch is actually on the other side of the ball. Texas's defense has been elite on third down, top 10. Florida's defense is 36th, so not bad, but not elite like the Texas Longhorns are. Question 6, can DJ Lagway make better decisions and hit some big plays? Last year, on throws that traveled 20-plus yards downfield, he completed over 50% of his passes. That was the best completion percentage in the SEC. That was top 5 in America. So far, he just hasn't hit those throws. And only 7% of their pass attempts go over 20 yards. That's 130th as far as aggressiveness and effectiveness throwing the ball. They're a run the ball, hit play action type of team. And that just hasn't happened for them this year. He's also got to make better decisions. Throwing into traffic against Texas is not a good recipe. So far, Texas turned over the opposing team 7 times this year. That's pretty respectable considering they played just 4 games. And this defense has long been known for creating takeaways. They've historically excelled. In 2024, for example, they forced 31 turnovers, including 22 interceptions. So this is a really, really good group when it comes to taking the ball away if your quarterback is not accurate and not making great decisions. I'm taking Texas, but I think this game will be close. A lot of it will depend on how healthy Florida is on the defensive line. If they somehow return to full strength, I could see this being a complete dogfight. And if all those guys are out of the lineup, I don't know how they're going to hold up for 60 minutes. So watch the injury report closely here, especially leading up to game time. Who can go for Florida? Who cannot go for Florida? Because if they have some notable absences, it's a heavy lean towards Texas. But if they, for whatever reason, get everybody back, then I think Florida has a fighting chance of slowing down a Texas offense that is yet to really find their stride this season. The Vanderbilt Commodores, undefeated, traveling to Tuscaloosa, take on the Alabama Crimson Tide. Alabama, a 10.5-point favorite in this one, 3:30 Eastern time on ABC. Bryant-Denny Stadium, looking forward to this game. And for the first time since 1937, both programs enter this matchup ranked in the AP poll. It's a testament to what Vanderbilt has done under Clark Lee. College Game Day will be there. This is a big opportunity for Vanderbilt, much like last year, where they had a 40-35 upset in favor of the Doors, knocking off Alabama. The first victory over the Crimson Tide that season since 1984, and their first ever win against the number one ranked team. And the memory of that loss looms. Alabama players openly talked about it throughout the offseason. They openly talked about it, I think, leading up to this game. Alabama's riding a wave of momentum after a great upset on the road at Georgia that snapped the Bulldogs' 33-game home winning streak. However, there is a bit of a psychological dynamic that is somewhat comparable to last year. Alabama gets that signature win, which kind of sets the stage for a possible trap game, right? Like, that's what you got to be mindful of. But I think Alabama, with the way they've approached it and what they experienced last year, they'll be ready to play. I think they'll play well. But Vanderbilt is legit now. I think this team is actually a lot better than they were last year. This is a huge opportunity to kind of validate that national ranking, to prove that the 2024 victory was not an anomaly, but the new expectation for Vanderbilt football under Clark Lee. Coaching matchup's awesome. You look at Kalen DeBoer, I think the big thing for him is to kind of avoid that emotional letdown, making sure that his team avoids the, quote, rat poison. I think he will. I mean, this team knows very well how good this Vanderbilt team can be when they are operating at full capacity. And look, Clark Lee, to be an alumnus at Vanderbilt, he was the 2024 SEC Coach of the Year. He's already engineered one of the more remarkable turnarounds in college football in recent history. He's still kind of an identity of discipline and ball control, and his teams are consistently among the least penalized. They're great at controlling the time of possession, and that will be huge, kind of shorten the game. And that's kind of a key tenet of his strategy, to shorten the game against teams that have more talent. The quarterback matchup's one of the best of the weekend. Ty Simpson, the redshirt junior, has been off the charts the last couple weeks, man. He is so good, so decisive, playing smart football. And Kirby Smart actually recently called him the hottest quarterback in college football. So, I mean, if Kirby Smart's saying it, let's take his word for it. He's been very precise, great decision-making, and he has been 11-0 touchdown to interception ratio. Don't forget, though, I mean, he could take off. He's got adequate mobility, and he's shown a knack for kind of escaping pressure and extending plays. He does have almost 60 yards rushing, so he can keep you honest if the pass rush gets too aggressive. Diego Pavia on the other side, he's the undisputed engine of Vanderbilt's resurgence. He's fiery, he's aggressive, he's a competitor, and his mentality kind of defines the team's identity. He's your typical dual threat, excels as a runner, has great vision, great toughness, not just on design runs, but also on scrambles. So far through 5 games, he has 294 rushing yards. That's top 10 amongst quarterbacks in the FBS. And he's been especially lethal on third down, where 80% of his carries go for a first down or for a touchdown. Now, he doesn't have like a crazy arm, but he's fearless. And he's extremely willing to throw the ball at any point downfield off play action. And he can really do a great job of creating plays off schedule, and almost looks more comfortable when he's on the move and things are going haywire around him. So his performance has been outstanding this year, and he has not made as many bad decisions as he did at times last year. So it will be imperative for him to continue to play smart football. Vanderbilt comes into this game with a pretty clean bill of health. Alabama on the other side, 2 Wolf linebackers. Quay Russaw, who was the starter, got a surgery after hurting his foot against Georgia. He will be missed in this game. And then Jamarian Lathan, who is the primary backup at the Wolf spot, he's out with a neck injury that he sustained in practice. So they're a little thin at that Wolf spot there on the end of the line of scrimmage. You also have a defensive tackle in James Smith, who will have to sit out the first half of the Vanderbilt game after getting ejected there in the second half of the Georgia contest with the targeting. So that will be something to watch as well, because he is a difference maker there along the defensive line. Question number 1, can Alabama's passing attack continue to dominate? They are a top 10 team when it comes to throwing the football. They have yet to commit a turnover through 4 games. This is Alabama's biggest advantage in the game. They have a deep and explosive receiving core led by Jeremy Bernard and the supremely talented Ryan Williams. Both are capable of taking over a game. And they're facing a Vanderbilt secondary that's widely considered probably the biggest question mark on what is a very solid defense from top to bottom. And the unit has kind of improved their depth in the transfer portal, but they haven't seen anything like they're going to see with Alabama's combination of elite quarterback play, complex route concepts, and NFL talent on the outside. So if Vanderbilt's corners cannot hold up in man coverage, it will force them into kind of some softer zone schemes. And that's when Ty Simpson can surgically dissect on the intermediate throws and on some of the underneaths as well. Question number 2, can Alabama contain Diego Pavia and limit Vanderbilt's rushing attack? Alabama is currently giving up 160 yards a game on the ground. That's 90th. Vanderbilt has 3 different ball carriers that have over 200 rushing yards. Diego Pavia is their leader. He's got nearly 300. Cedric Alexander is second. He's got nearly 250. You also have Young, who's in there at 3. He's got 211. And with the top 2 Wolf linebackers out, Alabama is a little bit vulnerable to the rushing lanes that can be created with this very deceptive rushing attack. And if the inexperienced replacements that are filling in for Rousseau and Latham, if they can't set the edge and kind of keep Diego Pavia in the pocket, he has the potential to kind of control the game by extending drives with his legs and kind of wearing down this defense that might be a little more thin than they were just a couple weeks ago. Question number 3, can Alabama create a rushing attack of their own? The most glaring mismatch in the game, statistically speaking, is actually Vanderbilt's run defense against Alabama's rushing offense. If you look at where Alabama's at right now, they're averaging less than 4 yards a carry and just over 120 a game on the ground. That's triple digit. So they got to figure that out a little bit, and they're facing a Vanderbilt defensive front that has been really, really good. They're allowing just 70 yards per game and under 3 yards per attempt. So that group up front defensively for Vanderbilt, that might be the most improved unit from last year to where they're at this year. And the return of Jam Miller from injury does provide a boost to Alabama in the offensive line. They have not created a ton of movement, but I did see growth from the first 3 games to the game that we saw last week against the Georgia Bulldogs. I know you're not going to look at it statistically and see growth, but if you just watch how that offensive line was engaged, it did look like they take a big step in that direction. And if Alabama can't kind of control the line of scrimmage, that does put a little more pressure on Ty Simpson and the passing game, and it gets especially difficult when they get in the red zone. Like, I have full faith that Alabama will move the ball between the 20s. But in order to consistently score in the red zone, you got to be able to run the football. So getting that offensive line going, getting that run game going will be very helpful for Alabama, not just in this contest, but in several contests down the road. Question number 4, can Vanderbilt maintain their offensive efficiency? That's right. That's not an opinion, by the way. Do you realize that Vanderbilt, statistically speaking, has the most efficient offense right now in college football? That is accurate. They are number 1 in offensive efficiency. Phenomenal balance. 271 through the air, 223 on the ground. They're top 5 on third down conversions. They convert over 60%. They're top 3 in red zone percentage. And they don't really get off schedule very much. They've allowed just 3 sacks this year. That's top 10. So Alabama must be great on third down in this defense, in this game defensively. They are 100th nationally in opponent third down conversion rate. Teams convert right now 46% of the time. We saw tremendous growth in that area against Georgia. Georgia converted just 2 out of 8. But that was why Vanderbilt was able to control the clock and kind of wear down Alabama's defense last year, is Alabama really struggled on third down. We know Vanderbilt want to shorten the game. We know they want to play slow and methodical. If Bama can get off the field on third down, that would go a long way in helping them continue to play at a high level on both sides of the ball, not just on the offensive side. Question number 5, can Alabama continue to play smart football? Right now, they're +7 in the turnover margin. That's 3rd best in college football. Ty Simpson's been amazing. With how aggressive he's been, to marry up his aggressiveness with ball security has been outstanding. And their offense, even if it's one-dimensional, has been really good at taking care of the football. And Vanderbilt has forced 9 turnovers this year. That's top 10. Now, Alabama turned it over 2 times in this game last year, and that was a big reason for the Vanderbilt 40-35 upset. If Alabama can keep clean sheet and make Vanderbilt drive the length of the field, that will be huge in favor of the Tide. And then question 6, can Vanderbilt control the pace of the game? Look, Kalen DeBoer's offensive philosophy is predicated on high volume, utilizing some tempo, maximizing possessions, and kind of leveraging the superior speed and skill at the wide receiver spots. However, Clark Lea's blueprint for victory against top-tier competition, which we saw in 2024, is deliberately go out of their way to shorten the game. Vandy's path is pretty obvious. Their offense embarks on long, methodical drives. They convert over 60% of their third downs, and they dominate time of possession for more than 38 minutes. That shrinks the play exposure that their defense will be subjected to, and it keeps Ty Simpson and company on the sideline. So it'll be very, very important for Vanderbilt, if they want to pull the upset, to continue to have those long, methodical drives and keep Ty Simpson at bay. I will not make a pick in this game, but I will be on the call alongside Sean McDonough and Molly McGrath from Tuscaloosa. We'll go next to a really sneaky, great game in the ACC. It's Virginia into the top 25, going to Louisville to take on the undefeated Louisville Cardinals. This game is 3:30 Eastern time on ESPN2. Virginia's Chandler Morris, awesome, right? He's been so fun to watch. The way he gets around at the quarterback spot, he is the catalyst for this offensive resurgence that has them right now in top 10 scoring, top 10 total offense, and he's great. Really, really good. And this is a really good defense he's playing against. For Louisville, it's Miller Moss. Transfer from SC and has got a lot of arm talent. He's proven that he can lead comeback victories based on the recent rally against Pitt. And this will be a somewhat stingy Virginia defense when it comes to turning people over. Impactful injuries in the game. Cavs had some concerns in their secondary. Dre Walker and Jam Jackson. Those corners, we'll see whether or not they're available. Their absence could be significant against Louisville's passing attack. And then on Louisville's side, their running back room's been very banged up. Isaac Brown and Duke Watson. Game time decisions the last time out. Their health is kind of a major storyline. They also had Keywan Brown, who was ruled out the previous game. So keep an eye on the running back room for Louisville here. That could be significant. Question number 1. Can Virginia's high-flying offense continue its success on the road against a tough conference opponent? Virginia's offense right now is top 5 offense statistically. Chandler Morris has been super dynamic, has manufactured a lot of big plays. He does have 4 picks, including 3 last week. But he's a veteran guy that can hurt you not just through the air, but also on the ground. He's got 170 yards rushing. He's not alone. It's a really talented stable of running backs that he relies on. They have 3 guys that have gone for over 200 yards so far this year, led by Jamari Taylor, who, by the way, he might be one of the most underrated running backs in the country. He's got nearly 400 yards, super underrated in the ACC. I love this guy. He's so tough to bring down. He's super physical, and he can accelerate as well. Louisville, so far, they've been a top 20 defense this year in a lot of categories. They've also forced 9 turnovers, which could be big in this game, especially given some of the chances that Chandler Morris will occasionally take. Question 2, can Louisville establish the run and slow the game down? Now, shockingly, Louisville, with the talent they have at running backs, averaging just 130 rushing yards a game. They've been a little banged up at running back, which hasn't helped, but Isaac Brown, Duke Watson, Keywan Brown, is a talented trio, and they need to get the run game going. And it's going to be important to be good on first and second down with the football because UVA is allowing just 25% on third down conversions, which is top 15. Question 3, can Louisville's offensive line protect Miller Moss from the Virginia pass rush? They've given up 8 sacks this year. UVA on the other side, they've recorded 11. So they have a group that can kind of get after you a little bit. And UVA has had some challenges in the secondary. So if they can keep Miller Moss upright, he may be able to take advantage of that group. I'm taking Louisville. I'm also going to lay the points here. I do think they get back to business running the football, and their defense will make life very difficult on Chandler Morris and company to continue to do what they did last week. Moving next to another game at 3:30. This one's on NBC. It's Boise State taking on Notre Dame. The Boise State Broncos, man, this is the one they've been circling, right? It's the one they've been waiting for, the opportunity that they want. Maddox Madsen, their quarterback, he's shown some flashes of brilliance. He's got good arm talent. He's got an ability to extend plays. His decision-making will be very important in this game. And on the other side, CJ Carr, what an incredible start to his career he's had. I mean, won the starting job there in the preseason, but he's shown a lot of poise, shown great command, and he can clearly break you down with whatever type of coverage you want to throw at him. This is a mature young man. I'm very, very optimistic with what I've seen. A couple injuries in this game. The Broncos have been monitoring the health of a few defensive linemen. So if they are at less than 100%, that could have an impact on how much pressure they can create against CJ Carr. And then for Notre Dame, they've been dealing with some injuries in the secondary. So they got to make sure that they're getting close to 100% there in the back end, because they need to make sure if they don't cover well against Boise State's passing attack, big plays could get created. Question number 1, can Boise State neutralize Notre Dame's defensive front? This is a battle in the trenches to watch. Boise, like always, pretty good up front this year. They go for over 220 a game on the ground. They've given up just 3 sacks. Notre Dame's defensive front possesses a massive advantage in size and talent. But if Boise State's offensive line cannot neutralize that defensive line, it could be a long day for Maddox Madsen. And Boise has to kind of stay on schedule by running the football with Dylan Riley and Sire Gaines and Malik Sherratt. And Madsen, he'll hold the ball a little bit now. Hey, he's not just catching it and throwing it. He's not afraid to kind of hold it back there and kind of let things develop. The fact that they've only given up 3 sacks is pretty remarkable. Question 2, can CJ Carr continue to play at an All-American level against a veteran secondary? Did any of y'all coming into this year, serious, any of y'all expect Notre Dame to have a top 16 passing offense after 4 weeks of the season? Especially knowing they played against A&M and against Miami? I certainly didn't. I also didn't expect them to have a top 5 offense in terms of efficiency. But we know they have a ton of weapons, right? Faison, Fields, the emergence of Raridan, even Jeremiah Love and his contributions to the passing game. They have a lot of weapons. And they're going against an experienced secondary. This backfield for Boise, they are known for creating turnovers. They're disciplined. They have been a little vulnerable to giving up some big plays. So if they're giving up explosive plays in the passing game, that's really bad news for the Broncos, because Notre Dame, they've excelled in that area this year. They have 24 pass plays that have gone for 20 plus yards. That's 7th in the FBS. Question 3, has Notre Dame's defensive woes gotten corrected? Look, the secondary depth has been problematic. Like, injuries have kind of thinned out a position in the backfield that could be a bit of a concern. This is a good passing attack, and they can move the ball through the air. It's a top 20 unit throwing the football, and they average nearly 300 yards a game. Caples and Marshall, they create a nice 1-2 punch at wide receiver. So Notre Dame has to be just as good this week defensively as they were a week ago. And then question 4, can Boise State stop this tandem of running backs? Look, we know that this running back tandem, Jadarian Price and Jeremiah Love, and an improving offensive line will be a handful. And the way they're running it and attacking all areas of the defense, outside the tackles, inside the tackles, on the edges, in the alleys, they can do a lot of different things running the football. So can Boise somehow neutralize that rushing attack? I'm taking Notre Dame. The advantage in the trenches is just too much. I don't think Boise can overcome that, but I would not be surprised if Boise covered. I think Boise will hold up a little better in the trenches than some would think. I think they'll be pretty sound in the secondary. So I think this game stays inside the number, but I think the Irish will win this game comfortably. Washington travels across country to take on Maryland. This game's 3:30 Eastern time on the Big Ten Network. The quarterback matchup's a good one. Damon Williams has been super efficient, super dual threat, unbelievably athletic, can extend plays, super accurate on downfield throws, but he's not come back to earth a little bit last week after playing against an incredible Ohio State defense. And on the Maryland side, Malik Washington, super highly touted recruit. He's shown some flashes of brilliance. Been a lot of drops, but he's got a big arm. He's got decent pocket presence. The inexperience, though, could be tested against a seasoned Washington defense. We'll be watching a couple injuries in this one. Takario Davis, Jacob Manu, corner and linebacker, respectively, for Washington. They got to be out there. They got to be ready to roll. And then Rasheed Williams, speedy wide receiver. His absence might limit some of the explosive play potential if, in fact, he can't go. And then for Maryland, they have a tight end that's a very reliable target, Leon Houghton. He's right now questionable, and Jameer Glasker at defensive back is a contributor there in the back end. So this would kind of thin out an already somewhat tested secondary. Question 1, will Washington impose their will on the ground? They're rushing for over 210 a game. Jonah Coleman is one of the nation's best running backs. Couple that with Damon Williams' ability to create, and you have a very formidable duo. And Maryland's been good so far against the run. They're allowing just 92 rushing yards a game. Question number 2, can Maryland's wide receivers create problems against the secondary? Washington's allowing over 200 a game through the air. Not terrible. There's a pretty talented group of wide receivers with Jalil Farouk, Octavian Smith, Shalik Knotts. They do have kind of an inordinate amount of drops, but these are good weapons that can create problems for you if you are not sound in coverage. Question 3, can Maryland find balance offensively? Currently, they're running for only about 104 yards a game. That's leading to a really bad third down conversion rate and a red zone offense right now that is 128th. It's hard to put that much on a freshman quarterback in a game like this. I'm taking Washington. I will admit it is kind of hard to lay the point. It's just knowing you're traveling 3 time zones. It's hard to lay north of a touchdown. But I look at Maryland, they were pretty opportunistic last week. I think this is a team that will be much more sharp. I think Washington will not make the same mistakes that Wisconsin made. So I'm a little hesitant to lay the points, but if you're telling me I got to make a choice, I'd lay them. I'd take the Huskies in this matchup. Texas Tech travels to Houston. This game's 7 o'clock Eastern time on ESPN. From Houston's TD-ECU Stadium, this will be Willie Fritz against Joey McGuire. Look, I love Willie Fritz. And then one other note in this game, Houston's defensive coordinator, Sheil Wood, he's now at Texas Tech. So that's kind of a story within the story. And Houston so far and Texas Tech, man, these are 2 teams that have really improved from where they were last year. Baron Morton at Texas Tech, he got banged up in the last matchup. Will Hammond came off the bench. But through the first 4 games, he's been super efficient, really good on some downfield throws. His quarterback rating's off the charts. He's kind of the unflappable leader. If he, for whatever reason, can't go, or if he is limited, Hammond went in against Utah and impressed everybody. So not a huge concern because they have depth at quarterback there for the Red Raiders. Connor Wigman, transfer from A&M. He's done a good job in this offense. Now, the efficiency has not been off the charts. He's just completing 61% of his passes, but he does have just 1 pick. However, one thing that he has done very well this year, he's been a real effective runner. He's gone for 141 yards on the ground. He also has a team-leading 4 touchdowns. So in total, Houston has scored 13 offensive touchdowns this year. Connor Wigman's been responsible for 10 of those 13 touchdowns. Question number 1, can Texas Tech's passing attack get after Houston's secondary? This is the most explosive passing attack in the Big 12 against a secondary that has really not been tested just yet. So you look at the numbers, they're top 2 in college football, the Red Raiders are, by throwing for nearly 370 a game. Super deep and talented wide receiver core, ton of options to spread the ball to. And look at Houston's pass numbers, they appear very, very solid. They're allowing just 140 yards a game through the air. But it's kind of inflated by a non-conference schedule that did not feature an offense of this caliber. They really need to implement kind of a bend, don't break defensive approach. Now, you're probably not going to shut down this high-powered offense, but you have to limit explosive plays. Houston's defense must force the Red Raiders to execute long, methodical drives and then stiffen in the red zone. If they can hold Texas Tech to field goals instead of touchdowns, they have a real chance of pulling off the upset. Question 2, can Houston run the ball? This has been a solid unit against an elite one. The Red Raiders are the number 2 rush defense in the country. They are allowing under 60 yards a game. And remember, the Red Raiders played against Utah, who's known for running the football. And Houston's ground game, kind of the foundation of what they do. They have a tandem with Dean Connors, who's been pretty good for them this year. And their cornerback, Connor Wigman, he can keep you honest as well. So it's imperative that they get this going. It will be a little bit hard. It'll be without one of their guards, David Ndukwe. And this Texas Tech, man, they do have a very aggressive group for the most part. Might leave them somewhat vulnerable to mobile quarterbacks, but we didn't see that come to fruition just a couple weeks ago when they played against a super dynamic Devin Dampier. So we'll see. They need to sustain drives. Houston does. They need to run the football. They need to keep Texas Tech's offense off the field. Question 3, do penalties play a role? There is a glaring gap right now in these 2 teams when it comes to penalties. Texas Tech is averaging nearly 80 penalty yards a game. That's a massive liability. They're among the most penalized teams in college football. It's especially significant when you take into account they're going on the road. On the other side, Houston has been very disciplined under Willie Fritz. They have just under 46 penalty yards a game, which is top 43 nationally. So that 41 and a half yard per game difference on self-inflicted mistakes from penalties could present a little bit of a challenge. But man, I'm having a hard time seeing it. I think Texas Tech wins this thing. I think they win this thing convincing. We'll go next to Mississippi State, who's traveling to Kyle Field. This is 7:30 Eastern time on SEC Network. Jeff Lebby, a chance to kind of secure another program-defining win on the road against a top 10 opponent. This would validate a very promising 4-1 start and prove that his offense can succeed against some of the conference elites. For A&M and Mike Elko, it's about maintaining national championship aspirations, right? We know that this team has been great so far, just about keeping that trainer rolling right now. The quarterback matchup is Blake Shapen. 5 games this year, been very efficient. He's completing 65% of his passes. Does have 8-3 touchdown interception ratio. Solid passer rating for the most part. And he's operating this offense at a pretty high level. Doesn't have crazy mobility. He has just 50 net rushing yards on 43 attempts. So you got to factor in sacks there, but he's not really a guy that's going to kill you with his legs, but he can keep you honest. Marcel Reed on the other side has done a lot of really nice things so far for the Texas A&M Aggies. He's always a threat to run the football. He's accumulated over 119 rushing yards and a touchdown this year. So if you look at what he did in 24, he was the SEC's leading quarterback in rushing yards per game. He has not completed a ridiculous high number of his passes, just over 60%, but he has shown growth this year. Injury situations in this game are significant. Now, Mississippi State, they got a bunch of guys along a very impactful injury list. Check this one as the game gets a little bit closer. If some of these key guys are out, it's going to be very hard for Mississippi State to pull off the upset. And then for Texas A&M, they're healthier, still monitoring a couple key players as well. So check the injury report here. It's an important game to make sure you take a peek at that. Question number 1, can Mississippi State's offensive line hold up against Texas A&M's defensive front? This is probably the most significant matchup in the game and one that could very easily determine the outcome of the game. That's when Mississippi State has the ball. Their offensive line has had a handful of injuries. They've already lost their starting right tackle, Blake Steen. He's out for the season. His replacement, Albert Reese, was then injured in the game against Tennessee, seen with his arm in the sling on the sideline. Whether or not he plays this week is very much up in the air. It means the Bulldogs might be down to their third string right tackle, or they'll reshuffle what they have against a top 10 opponent on the road in one of the most hostile environments in the country. That's hard, especially knowing this defensive front and how loaded they are with talent and how they're kind of built to generate pressure and built to disrupt an offensive line that might not have tremendous cohesion across the front. So this is a pretty big advantage for A&M right now. Even when Mississippi State was healthy, they'd given up 11 sacks. So this mismatch, it really threatens Mississippi State's offensive identity, which is all about kind of keeping Blake Shapen in the pocket, giving him time to survey and manufacturing plays downfield. It might force Jeff Levy kind of adjust his play calling a little bit, go with a heavy dose of screens, quick throws, slants, what have you. So the primary goal would be to get the ball out of Blake Shapen's hands quickly, less than 2.5 seconds. And that would neutralize the advantage that A&M's pass rush might have by not giving them time to get home and hit their quarterback. Question number 2, can Mississippi State contain these explosive weapons in the passing game? This is an elite unit. I mean, I don't really know what other adjective to describe it. They are capable of scoring anywhere on the field. Mario Craver has been one of the best transfer wide receivers in the country. He's got over 440 yards already this year. And then KC Concepcion, also really dynamic with the ball in his hands. Both can get behind you. Both do a great job of stretching the field vertically. But even on the underneath stuff, they can make a guy miss and take it the distance. They're facing a Mississippi State secondary that's also dealing with a couple injury concerns. They lost both their starting safeties, Isaac Smith and Brylan Lanier, during the Tennessee game. Neither player returned to action, so keep an eye on those guys. If those guys are down, that could be problematic working against this outstanding wide receiver core for the Aggies. Question 3, can Mississippi State turn the Aggies over? I think this is the ticket to State's success. They're currently +6 in the turnover margin. That's top 6 in the country. They've forced 10 takeaways. That's 4th. The Aggies on the other side, they've only forced 2 turnovers this year. That's among the fewest in the FBS, but they've kept a really clean sheet. They've only turned it over 3 times themselves, which is top 20. So it might be imperative that Mississippi State forces a couple turnovers, because if they don't, it would be tough sledding against a really good, well-rounded Texas A&M team. Question number 4, can Texas A&M improve offensively on third down? They're converting just over 30% of their third downs. It's 125th. It's not been good. Can Marcel Reed win from the pocket on third down? And if Mississippi State's defense, if they can kind of contain his scrambling ability and force him into third and long situations, does he possess the poise, the accuracy to just move the chains exclusively with his arm? Because his completion percentage is just 42% on third down. So that will be big for Mississippi State. I'm taking Texas A&M. I just don't know how Mississippi State is going to hold up with the battered offensive line. And I also think they left it all on the field last week. And this one, I could see it getting away from them. I'm going to lay the points with the Aggies this weekend. And finally, we will go to Tallahassee. Miami at Florida State, 7:30 Eastern time on ABC. For the first time since 2016, both programs enter this contest ranked in the top 25. A long-awaited return to relevance for both sides. This matchup has obviously produced some of the great moments in college football history. This is one of my favorite rivalries, and I just love it every single time these two teams are up against each other. The helmet battle, man. I absolutely love it. So good. Miami's sitting there at number 3. They are right now looking down at everybody else in the ACC. I think people are starting to wake up to the possibility of them maybe winning a national championship. And if you look at their schedule, this might be the biggest hurdle that they face in the regular season. I love this Florida State team. We'll get to them here in just a minute. But if you look at Mario Cristobal and how he's kind of led this team this year, there's a certain swagger that you see with Miami that is just so reminiscent of the best moments in Miami football history. I'm not saying that they're 0-1. I'm not saying they're late 80s, early 90s, but there's a swagger that this team has been playing with that it's fun to watch. I mean, it's just really, really fun to watch. On the other side, the Seminoles, they start the season in just incredible fashion. They go and they dominate Alabama. They run for over 200 in the process. It vaults them immediately in the top 10. All of a sudden, you're saying, all right, Florida State is a national championship contender. At least I was feeling that way. And then last week, things kind of came back to earth just a little bit with the stunning loss to Virginia in overtime. Let's go to the quarterback matchup. Carson Beck. He has done a great job so far this year. Even dating back to his time in the SEC, he was the unnecessary recipient of a lot of criticism from time to time, but he was 24-3 as the starting quarterback of the Bulldogs. It's a pretty good starting point. He's a pocket general. His game is predicated on being highly intelligent, highly cerebral, having decent composure, as long as the pass rush isn't there. Through 4 games this year, he's been very efficient. He does have 3 picks, but for the most part, if you look at those picks, 2 are under duress, and I don't think you can necessarily chalk it up to him. He's completing over 73% of his passes, man. He is playing really solid right now for this Miami team behind a really good offensive line. More on them here in just a moment. Thomas Castellanos. Now, if you look at kind of the steadiness that Carson Beck has brought to Miami, Thomas Castellanos has been the secret sauce to getting Gus Malzahn's spread option attack up to its potential. He's a true dual threat. His running ability is probably the toughest part about defending this team, and his athleticism kind of unlocks Florida State's entire offensive attack. So you look at these two quarterbacks, both highly efficient. One operates exclusively from the pocket. Castellanos thrives when there's chaos created, and his legs are incredible. He has rushed already 41 times this year for 217 yards and 4 touchdowns. And while sometimes he's a little bit inconsistent throwing the football, he has made some big-time throws throughout the last few weeks, especially on some deep shots, and did so late against Virginia in the game last week, and does have 3 picks. So that's something to be mindful of, because a swarming Miami defense that is all about containing mobile quarterbacks and forcing them into making big mistakes. Question number 1. Can Florida State run the football against Miami's defensive front? Now, Florida State, they're number 2 rushing offense in the country. They are as committed to the run game as just about anybody. They go for nearly 330 a game and nearly 6.6 per rush, thereabouts. It's not just a one-dimensional attack either. I mean, this is a multi-pronged rushing assault that features the power of Gavin Sawchuk, who wants to get downhill. You got some explosiveness that we've seen from time to time from Chroma. And then the ever-present threat that is Thomas Castellanos, who is super effective and is the third running back, essentially, in a scheme that wants to create a lot of misdirection. The Seminoles have already generated 14 rushing plays of 20 more yards in 4 games. So it kind of goes to show you they got a lot of juice. They can create a lot of big plays on the ground. Now, I cannot emphasize enough how important Thomas Castellanos' legs are in this matchup, because he is the one guy that can neutralize a defensive front that takes a backseat to nobody in college football this year, because the bedrock of this Miami program might be its defensive line. They are totally constructed to dominate against the run. They are allowing just 76 rushing yards a game and just 2.5 per carry. So they are a swarming group that excels with gang tackling, and they are anchored by 2 All-Americans. Ruben Bain on one side, who you can make a strong argument is the best defensive player in the country, and on the other side, Akeem Mesidor. And by the way, sometimes those guys are on the same side. So good luck to that side of the offensive line when those 2 guys are lined up right next to each other. Question number 2. How will Florida State's defensive line hold up against the best offensive line in college football? Now, another trench battle. It does appear right now on the surface like Miami has a decent advantage. Look, we know that this offensive line, it's all that Mario Cristobal has created. It's what he's known for. It's his bread and butter. And he's got an unbelievable right tackle in Cece Maui-Noa. They also have a bunch of guys from right guard all the way to left tackle that can play at a really high level. They've done a great job, too, in protecting Carson Beck. They've given him a lot of time there in the pocket to kind of survey the defense. And they'll face a Florida State defensive line that's still kind of trying to establish what they are. They have a new defensive coordinator in Tony White, and they've been respectable in generating sacks. The run defense is fine. They're 31st, but they have been a little bit susceptible to an offensive line that might want to kind of just impose their will in the run game. Now, there has been some nice young players that have come along. Mandrell Desir, he's kind of worked his way into a prominent role at the defensive tackle spot. And I think they're kind of moving some pieces around. They're kind of trying to figure out, all right, how many plays do we want to get each player along this defensive line? Because they're probably going to have to rotate a lot against an offensive line that will just pound you with brute strength. So if Miami can control the line of scrimmage, they'll neutralize Florida State's pass rush and allow Beck time he needs to methodically dissect the Seminoles secondary. Question 3. How will Miami handle Deuce Robinson? Now, this might be the most significant individual matchup in this game. You got Florida State's top receiver in Deuce Robinson working against Miami's defensive backs. Now, he's transferred over from SC. He's 6'6". He's 225 pounds. He creates a matchup nightmare on the perimeter that very few can match up against. He's got plenty of size. He's got plenty of speed. And there's not many corners in college football that want to see that length on the perimeter. And he's obviously the go-to guy in the passing game. He leads the Seminoles right now, 17 for 346 and 3 touchdowns. That have a big drop late last week, but this guy is a stud. And his ability to win contested catches downfield makes him the primary deep threat in this Florida State offense. If he can win over the top, that's huge. But he's also great on the back shoulder throws as well. I think he is single-handedly, outside of the quarterbacks, he is single-handedly the most important player on the Florida State team in this matchup. He's got to go off. Because this Miami secondary is talented, but they have probably not seen a wide receiver that's this physical in the red zone on 3rd and longs, that has top-end speed, but can also win those jump balls. And while I think Miami is improved across the board on the defensive side, the one question I have might be a corner. Deuce Robinson has to go off in this game if Florida State is going to make a run at the possible upset. Question number 4. Who will win first down? We'll start with Miami. Kind of the entire game plan hinges on being great on first down. If their defensive line can stop Florida State's rushing attack for minimal gain, then it will force the Seminoles into being in predictable passing situations. 2nd and longs, 3rd and longs. That kind of takes the element of surprise out of Gus Malzahn's playbook. And it kind of forces Castellanos to operate maybe as a slightly more traditional pocket passer, which is the biggest question mark in his game. For Florida State, They have to neutralize the three-headed monster at running back with Mark Fletcher, Marty Brown, and the returning Jordan Lyle, who was banged up in week 1, but probably has the most juice at the running back spot amongst the 3 guys that they utilize heavily there at running back for the Canes. So if they can make Miami one-dimensional, that'd go a long way in leading to some inconsistencies potentially for Miami's offense. Question 5, will Florida State avoid the critical mistake? You cannot make them against this group. You cannot fumble in your own territory like you did last week. You cannot have an interception on a deflected pass inside the 10 when you're about to score. You can't give that up. You can't give up a touchdown on 3rd and 11 from the 11-yard line on a QB scramble. And it did look like there was some tempo that gave Florida State some challenges. You're probably not going to see a lot of tempo from Miami. You got to get your cleats in the ground, and you got to set the tone. You got to set the tone early. I'm taking Miami in this game, but I think they win by 3. I think it's going to come down to the wire. I expect this to be a 60-minute battle, and you're going to get Florida State's best shot. I just think Miami's best is a little bit better than what we've seen from Florida State's best so far. All right, moving on now to some giant killers, okay? I already told you I'm taking Miami. So we know that. But Florida State plus 4.5, that line doesn't smell right to me. Florida State just lost last week. How are they just a 4.5-point dog against Miami at home? To me, this one screams, oh, Miami's going to go in there and do work. I don't know. I think I'd take the points there. How about Cal against Duke? Cal is getting 3. Duke's been great the last couple of weeks. Duke has been outstanding in some cases the last couple of weeks, whereas Cal just 2 weeks ago, everyone remembers their performance against a San Diego State team in which they got blanked 34-0. I love Duke this year, but that line didn't make sense to me. So I might take a peek at that one. Kansas State getting 6.5 at Baylor. Baylor's got a lot of firepower. Kansas State's off to a horrendous start through the first 5 games of the year. I think Kansas State's best football is in front of them. So I would not be surprised if that one is highly competitive there in Waco as well. Purdue getting 9.5 against Illinois. Another line that just did not make sense. Now, after what Illinois did last week, knocking off USC, bouncing back in such a big way, and yet they're laying just single digits against Purdue, who has not been very good. That line just didn't make sense. So I'd be very, very careful if you are backing the Illini this weekend. And then New Mexico getting 2.5 at San Jose State. That game's Friday night. Take a peek at that one as well. That'll do it for us here at Always College Football. Always appreciate the support you guys show the show. It's amazing the amount of people that tell us, hey, we listened to your preview show, man. Like, that's all I need to listen to. That's it. That's all I need to listen to be prepared for the entire weekend. I hear it from people in the industry. So it's kind of amazing that people that cover the sports are like, yeah, if I just listen to your preview show, I'm ready to roll for the weekend, man. So we so appreciate the support that you guys have shown us. It means a lot. We're going to continue to do our very best to give you the most pertinent information when it comes to the matchups on a week-to-week basis. So we look forward to watching the games on Saturday, taking these games in, hopefully applying some of the questions that we presented here in this show, and hopefully you guys will enjoy the matchups as much as we will. That's for sure. For all of us here at Always College Football, we encourage you, go subscribe to the podcast, wherever you get the podcast. Subscribe to the ESPN College Football YouTube page. You can do that there as well. So for all of us here at ACF, for Mark, Jake, Jack, the other Jack intern, Sam, I'm Greg. We hope you have an amazing day. And remember, it's always college football. Hey guys, it's Greg McElroy. Thanks for watching Always College Football. Make sure you like, rate, and subscribe to ESPN's YouTube channel and wherever you listen to your podcasts.